Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALK. Welcome to GrokTALK for January 16th, 2016. Here's a few important stories you may not be following. Mr. Obama's Al-Qaeda on the run has struck again, battling with security forces of the West African country of Burkina Faso. Islamist fighters took hostages at the splendid hotel in the capital of Ouagadougou. AQIM, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, that's AQIM on the run, is taking credit. According to a report by Reuters, the gunmen stormed the five-story hotel, burning cars and firing into the air to drive back crowds before security forces arrived. This is a hotel sometimes used by French troops based in Chad who are tasked with combating Islamic militants across West Africa. The BBC is reporting 23 killed of 18 different nationalities. The Burkinabe Communications Director, Remy Dangenou, told the BBC that between 6 and 7 militants had attacked the Splendid, adding that they had been staying at the hotel as guests. While the siege at the Splendid Hotel has ended, the AQIM militants on the run are not finished. They have now occupied a second hotel just down the street. Back in November, AQIM killed 20 people in the capital of Mali. Boko Haram, another militant Islamic group, has killed thousands in northeastern Nigeria during a 6-year insurgency, and in 2015 extended its attacks into neighboring countries Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. And yes, they continue to kidnap and enslave girls and young women without regard to however many hashtag-wielding neo-feminists express their false outrage on Twitter. USA Today reports that Senator Bernie Sanders, the 74-year-old Vermont independent socialist, will head into the Democratic presidential debate Sunday with a 19-point lead over frontrunner Hillary Clinton among Democratic and independent women ages 18 to 34. So independent and Democrat women between the ages of 18 and 34 prefer the 74-year-old man over the woman 50% to 31%. Sounds like a women's issue, if you ask me. Speaking of women's issues, Kimberly Kay at LegalInsurrection.com is reporting that YouTube star Ingrid Nilsson, in a recent interview with President Obama, asked him why women's feminine care products are taxed as luxury items in over 40 states. Not to miss a chance at softball, the president said that he had no idea why states would tax these as luxury items. I suspect it's because men were making the laws when those taxes were passed, he said. And I think it's pretty sensible for women in those states that you just mentioned to work to get those taxes removed. If you're going to blame men, Mr. President, blame men who like sales taxes. Those would most likely be Democrat men. But to be fair, as residents of New Hampshire, we can tell you that Democrat men, gay Democrat men, Democrat women, lesbian Democrat women, heck, all Democrats, they love taxes. And while we're on the subject, any effort by Republicans to reduce taxes or spending is met with whining, crying, chest-pounding, caterwauling, and doomsday predictions about the cost to society as we know it and women's health services in particular. GrokTALK has started its own Facebook page. We announced that last week. Yesterday, we opened up a space over at Google+. Please take a moment to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/GrokTALK and or add us to your circles on Google's social media platform. Small calendar note, Croydon versus the New Hampshire Department of Education, the second part of that exciting little event, will occur at the Sullivan County Superior Courthouse in Newport, New Hampshire on Wednesday, March 9th at 1 p.m. You are encouraged to attend to support local choice in New Hampshire. Coming up in Hour 1, a GrokTALK exclusive, board member Jorge Mesa-Tejada shares details surrounding a situation regarding some remarks he made at a committee meeting in Hampstead. He is not speaking to any other media but us. In Hour 2, we will have Kevin Kervick in to talk about campus speech and a group called Students for Common Sense, and Doug Sachletben from Club for Growth will share some thoughts about President Obama's State of the Union address this past week. We also welcome Ed Nail to the studio as this week's guest host. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with more GrokTALK. Need more GrokTALK? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
Hey, we made it. Roads are icy. Skip's stuck up on his mountain. But we are here. Mike Rogers to my left. I have Mr. Ed Nail to my right. He's joined us as our guest host this week. Some of our other actual guests will include Jorge Mesa-Tejada, which you may have heard in the newsread. We're going to talk about a situation in Hampstead with Mr. Jorge Mesa-Tejada. Kevin Kervick is going to join us at 10 o'clock. He's scheduled to come in and talk to us about campus speech and a group called Students for Common Sense. Doug Sachletben from Club for Growth will be in later on after that to talk about Mr. Obama's State of the Union address. And I got to remember what line Skip's on. Good morning, Skip.
He's on line 1.
Good morning.
How are you folks?
I gotta adjust your volume. Hang on, just like always, because it's a phone call. Thank you, Mr. Alexander Graham Bell, but we still have some technical difficulties many years later. Anyway, Skip's stuck on his frozen mountain, and we're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff today. We're gonna start the segment like we did last week. I'm gonna play some sound, and we're gonna get some reactions to that. But before we do that, how's it going up there? You said the salt trucks and sand trucks finally came by?
Just finally came by at the very end of the road here in Guilford, and that's to be expected because, hey, it's a Saturday and there's no school buses running.
Right. That
I
makes a lot of
spent
sense.
my time writing about one of our guests, Jorge Mesa-Tejada. I've got 2 posts up just now, probably more to come, because I've been there, and we'll see what happens. So if you want to go abstract audio or play some of the video, it's there at your fingertips.
I know, and I didn't have time to process it last night when I finally got it, and so it's not in my queue. But we will talk to Jorge about it. You've obviously seen it, so we're going to leave you on the line with him. Hopefully juggling the 2 phone lines won't screw up the audio quality too bad, but since you have more information than the rest of us in the room, Ed certainly does, because he's talked to Jorge directly, so he'll be involved in that conversation as well. I'll just kind of let you guys go. Mm-hmm. But we're going to start out with something else. We had a couple things happen this week of note. First of all, David Bowie died, Alan Rickman died, and then Dan Haggerty died this week also. He died yesterday at age of 73. So we have some folks who passed away. And then, of course, we had some political things that happened. We had a thing called the State of the Union show, and we also had a GOP debate. So we're going to play a little audio. This is from Ted Cruz, and we'll start with this. This was his response to the birther issue, and we'll just play it, and then everybody can give us a little feedback on that.
Back in September, my friend Donald said that he had his lawyers look at this from every which way, and there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now,
the laughter is Trump's face. It's pretty funny if you haven't watched it.
The Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa. But the facts and the law here are really quite clear. Under long-standing U.S. law, the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. At the end of the day, the legal issue is quite straightforward, but I would note that the birther theories that Donald has been relying on, some of the more extreme ones insist that you must not only be born on U.S. soil, but have 2 parents born on U.S. soil. Under that theory, not only would I be disqualified, Marco Rubio would be disqualified, Bobby Jindal would be disqualified, and interestingly enough, Donald J. Trump would be disqualified.
All right, now the question is this going to be an effective way for him to dismiss this, or is this still going to be a problem? Skip?
I think that he did a very good job at addressing it. I thought that it was a masterful stroke the way that he put it, that the Constitution hadn't changed, and then bringing Donald in at the end. This was the first of 2 good exchanges between the 2 of them. And I think he probably will, although Trump being Trump, he's going to continue to use it. And it has had a measurable effect on Cruz's poll numbers in Iowa. They have dropped somewhat from their high point. So we just have to wait to see. But as you could tell by the audience, he made a hit.
He absolutely did. I note that there's a lawyer out of Texas who has filed said suit against Cruz's eligibility. No news yet whether that lawyer is funded by Trump or by Soros or is just having some fun.
Ed, thoughts?
Well, it's the perennial. We're getting close to the primary election date, and it'll be anything that anybody can hang a hat on from this point on. I remember John Kerry when he was at the end of the campaign where he was running against Bush, I guess at the time.
Was it Bush? Yeah.
Yeah. I try not to watch these
Bush,
things.
who didn't serve in Vietnam.
Yeah, but the big thing then was we lost 300 tons of ammunition. Remember that? That was like a campaign theme. Mm-hmm. So the birther thing with Ted Cruz, I mean, I've seen it. It affects 25% of the Republicans that they called. Well, 25% of Republicans are rhinos who wouldn't vote for a Republican anyway.
That is. I went around the conservative blogosphere to try to get a sense, and some people said, yeah, this was very effective, definitely helped them win the debate, blah, 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 blah. No, not necessarily, da-da-da-da-da. So there's a lot of, obviously, contrary positions on the right about how it'll affect. But they all agreed pretty much that the people who were least likely to be impressed by the response are people who weren't going to vote for him anyway.
Yep.
Not in a primary.
Yeah,
anyway.
and in this part of the game, everybody's trying to advance the candidate they've chosen by tearing down the other one. So it's natural. It shows up every time. We've lived through this before, and if it wasn't for Barack Obama, there wouldn't be a birther. There'll probably never be a birther issue again for real. Because
no. It was the Democrats who tried it on McCain in 2007 and 8.
Didn't pan out for him.
No,
all right.
No, it didn't.
Next up, we have some audio from Rush on Trump, and this is interesting, and you'll know why the minute you hear it, so just hold on a second here.
Donald Trump has put together a support group. His voters, his support coalition is made up of people the Republican Party claims they want to reach out to. He's got Hispanics. 20% of his support base, if not more, is blue-collar Democrats. 20% of the Democrats surveyed recently said they would defect from the Democrat Party and vote for Trump. Well, is that not what the Republicans claim that they think and say they need to do? They need to peel off some Democrats, need to peel off some independents, need to get some Hispanics, need to go out there and get some women. Well, look at Trump's group of people. That's who he's got, and yet he's still rejected.
Mike?
That's exactly it. They claim the only way to get these supposedly much-needed groups to rebuild the Reagan coalition or to build an effective coalition is to slide down the slippery slope towards being a Democrat. And it's never worked because, as I said over Charlie Bass more than once, when given the choice between a real Democrat and a fake one, the voters will choose the real one. So no surprise that doesn't work. Along comes Trump, who has genuine crossover appeal due to his populist message, or even Cruz, who is just telling it like it is really effectively, and they are getting voters that the Republican Party says they want, but are deathly afraid of the candidates who can get them.
Yeah, Rush is so brutally honest that it, and this analysis is dead on. The first thing I thought was when you hear that independents, people like that, are going to vote for Trump, and they're actually saying it out loud. That's you could probably hear people hitting the floor where the Republican elites meet. So
I've actually seen some polling where the numbers are better than that in favor of Trump. It's everything the establishment and the Rhino National Committee have wanted, and they have it in this guy who's not one of their guys, so they're out to get him. Skip.
Yeah, it all comes down to, but he's not our Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And
No.
that's what scares them the most.
Exactly.
I'm not a Trump backer, but I certainly have had a lot of fun watching him bring up issue after issue that the establishment doesn't want to bring up, and that's why they're saying what they are right now, because he's upsetting not only their apple cart, but he's basically chopping down all of their apple trees.
Yes. I think that a lot of people dismayed with both parties are looking at Trump and going, well, he's running as a Republican, but he's not really a Republican. Since I'd never vote for Republicans, I would vote for Trump. So it's like the enemy of those Republicans is my Republican. type
True.
thing. So I think that's what's going on. I tried to go to one of his rallies. I couldn't get within a mile of it. I couldn't park within a mile. It wasn't worth getting out and walking.
He's that third-way candidate that everybody talks about. And this leads to our next soundbite. And this is the only reason why anybody is paying any attention still to what happened the night of the State of the Union, and it had nothing to do with anything Obama said.
The angriest voices was actually referred to a lot of things. I mean, it's certainly some of the things that Mr. Trump has said, but it's been to other things as well. Mr. Trump is not exempt from being one of those angriest voices, and all I'm saying is we've got a responsibility, and the way we handle issues and the way we talk about issues should be towards solution, not towards division. And so I say that in reference to a lot of things. What it was calling out my party. I mean, that was very true. I called out Republicans and I called out Democrats because I think it's important. If the country's going to move forward, we all need to look in the mirror. We all need to realize that we've all had something to do with this. Because once you do that, you can regroup and build the country back up.
Okay, that's Governor Nikki Haley throwing her own party under the bus after the Obama State of the Union address. And that is the only thing that's really been newsworthy, and we'll talk to Doug Sachletben from Club to Growth around 10:40 about his reaction and Club for Growth's reaction to the content of the State of the Union, if you can call it that. But this is what everybody's talking about. You get somebody for the first time ever, and I think Rush said this, that he's ever heard the Republican agree with Obama and throw his own party under the bus.
Howie Carr.
Howie Carr.
Had her speech on and a Ted Kennedy speech.
Yeah.
Same thing. So, here's the deal. If you want to see what angry white Democrats look like, go to a Trump rally. Because that's who's there. So here they come.
And they're angry because they're angry with the Washington cartel, just the way Cruz is and Cruz supporters are.
Yep.
And they don't see themselves being represented by Hillary. The smarter ones don't see themselves being represented by Bernie either. And so Trump's the next logical choice. I think it's great. I listened to Nikki Haley and I thought, a couple of iffy bits, but it seemed like a good speech. And then I sort of watched people pass through it, and I realized just how subtly bad it was. And she delivered it better. I mean, if you compared that to Bobby Jindal's response speech to Obama's first State of the Union, Jindal's content was better, but his delivery was awful.
Yeah, he gets spanked for that, but she won't from the media, because this is what they want to hear.
They love her. Anyway.
Yeah.
Skip, we're running into the end of this segment, so I need Skip's comment.
If you're not angry, then you're either part of the establishment Republican Party or a member of good standing in the Unifusion Party.
Okay. All right, we're going to call Jorge in a couple of seconds here. I'm going to turn off some microphones and do whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing to make this all sound like it's a professional thing. And you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Welcome back to GrokTALK.
Was that a little Hispandering there, Steve?
It was a little Hispandering, yes. Or something like that. All right. I have all these phone lines open and all these microphones open, so it's going to make me sound a little echoey. So we're going to do our best to manage that. We have Skip on the phone still. Of course, Mike Rogers, Ed Nail, our guest host for this week. And Jorge Mesa-Tejada has joined us. Good morning, Jorge.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, sir. Good, sir. So I haven't had a chance to go through all the information you sent me, but you've spoken to Ed and you've spoken to Skip. So why don't you preface this, and then I will let them interface with you on this discussion about your situation in Hampstead.
Sure. I'll tell you in a nutshell, the whole situation is a blown-up situation from what I said at the Budget Committee meeting on Thursday night. While we were discussing the bond issue, we came to the topic of the portables. Then one of the main selling points from the school establishment is safety for the students walking from the portables to the main school, about 20 feet.
And for people who aren't familiar, portables are like mobile home type office spaces that you use for classrooms, correct?
Many schools have them, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And the argument is that any sniper could pick them off the kid as he's walking at 20 feet. I said, well, that's absolutely feasible, but look at behind the school. You know, if I'm thinking of my Marine Corps training, if I were there, I would just hide in the woods and wait for recess and have a field day. That's what set them off. Mm-hmm. But that is not the reason. Those are the facts. Now, the reason why they blew that up is because they are trying to silence me in the worst way, because I have voted consistently for 3 years against the bond issue in the Budget Committee. It has never been recommended. And they want to silence me because there are other articles in the warrant, namely one that I put in, petition article for $1.2 million to do just the renovations, not $4.5 million one. And another one, which is even worse and threatening to the superintendent, a petition to separate from the SAU.
Oh, I'm sure the Earl of Metzler's not happy with that.
Exactly, because all the Sandown also filed a separation article against Timberlane.
Mm-hmm. So what we have is...
that's where we are.
We have the
and I think
superintendent.
that's the animus behind the whole thing.
The superintendent would like to hang a $4.5 million bond on his chest, wouldn't he? Pass this bond.
You should have seen the slick infomercial that they created. They had the weatherman from Channel 9, Josh Judge, who is a Hampstead resident, donated his service and narrated the voice over. Mm-hmm. It's very slick. And now someone paid for stickers, so everyone's wearing yellow stickers. I don't know what they say because they haven't given me one. But when you see Channel 9, the three mothers there, they are all wearing the yellow stickers. You see the school board wearing the yellow stickers during the official meeting. Is that electioneering? It goes on and on and on. But what the whole animus behind the whole thing is not what I said, is that I gave unintentionally, I served the plate for Metzler to take action against me.
Well, Metzler's history is he's a coach. And I think the way he wants to play this is anybody who's at this school is going to be on my team or you're not on the team. So he's done this with Donna Green, who's on the school board in Timberlane.
Has him in the Supreme Court for state Supreme Court for right to know.
He was in the Supreme Court taking a heck of a spanking last Friday.
It was funny.
I was there. The attorney for your school, for your cooperative, was put in his place over and over again. He couldn't answer a simple question. The right to know is real easy to understand. He couldn't answer questions. He evaded that as much as he could and gave sloppy answers like, why don't you give the electronic data to a school board member? Oh, because it's our policy to give paper.
All right, let me get Skip in on this. Skip?
Yeah, I went through some materials that you sent me, Jorge, and I've got two posts up on Granite Grok on this. One with, if people want to go listen to the entire Budget Committee, go ahead and do that, and you really want to start at about minute 38, but the actual line that Jorge mentioned from the school board infomercial starts at about minute 46. And you said something that now is starting to make a click. Now I understand why WMUR is committing journalistic malfeasance, where if Josh Elvin is doing the voiceover, well then of course Christine Carosa, who was the reporter responsible for the piece, didn't mention that it's the school board infomercial from where you pulled that out. I listened to the whole thing, and you just went from that line to your line, and nobody on the Budget Committee said anything. Nobody in attendance in the audience said a thing. It was clear that you were making sport of the school board, and yet WMUR has decided to take sides with the Earl of Metzler. So I'm going to run that down. I have a call into WMUR. identifying myself as being from Granite Rock, and asking, why did you leave out the most important part of this piece? And I think with you mentioning that Josh McKelvin did the voiceover, that it's right there.
Was it Josh or was it the weatherman you said?
Josh Judge.
Josh Judge?
Josh Judd, okay.
Judd.
Either way, there's the smoking gun.
Yes, there is. You know, this smoking guns, snipers, man in the woods. Dear me, what a mix-up. No, what I was thinking is this. So there's money involved here. Somebody's paying for a commercial, somebody's paying for shirts, somebody's paying for stickers, and it ain't coming out of the Earl of Metzler's own pocket. His pocket gets lined somewhere along the way when these big contracts go through. At least I'm guessing so. I can't make a direct accusation.
Well, he gets to keep his job, and he gets to be powerful, and he gets to push the chess pieces around. But what you said is important, and what Jorge said was important. Where is this money coming from? That's where you're going.
That's exactly the point. The biggest point that I have in this situation is that he has an unlimited amount of school funds that he can use, and no one can bark up his tree. Because no one at Timberlake and Hampstead, school board members have the guts to stand up to him when in fact they are his bosses. Right. So he has a carte blanche to do whatever he wants, and he's a despot. And his way to operate is to eliminate any enemies.
Now, this is money. And use the police department to do it. This is unprecedented in other schools.
Oh, okay, the police department's situation was they were asked to hand deliver the no trespass order. The police department did not have any hand in doing that. In fact, when he first approached the police chief, and I know him because I talked to him, he said that he wanted a restraining order, and he said, we won't touch that. And then he went back and wrote the no trespass order, which is within his authority.
Is that the top of his list? The first thing Metzler says is, I want a restraining order? I mean, this is not new.
This is common with him.
People of the world, listen very carefully. I want you to go to Donna Green's blog. Just look up Donna Green. You won't miss it.
It's called Timberlane and Sanborn.
Sandown.
Right. I'm sorry, Sandown.
And just take a couple hours out of your day and just read. She's done this is an award-winning blog, and this is just her blog, and she's been documenting everything that's been happening to her as a school board member in Sandown, dealing with this dirtbag.
He's a nut.
And Ed and Rich Gerard have had to deal with him. I mean, a whole bunch of people. Yeah, anybody who speaks out against this guy, Plastow, wherever they are, the cops are called. And it's free speech. It's right to know. It's just, the guy's a tyrant.
Basically, he's a little coward. I mean, I don't think he should be running a school. I don't think he's capable of running a school. I've said this on multiple stations. I've written it. He's out of his league, and his idea now is, I'll just take on all comers.
He gave his wife a make-work job?
Yeah, well, that's pretty common. But
now, one thing, guys, that you should be aware of, if you read the press release and public statement, that was probably written by the person he hired to be his PR person, who happens to be the wife of the former chairman of the Timberlane School Board. Okay, notice the fantastic write-up how they created a massacre. That I was going to massacre the kids. Read the words. That's not in whatever I said.
Uh-huh.
Well, he's claimed that he got death threats or threatening phone calls or something, and I didn't pay much attention to it at the time, but he filed a police report. And my name and Rich Gerard's name were in that police report. And he sent me an email.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, yeah. So who do you think might have sent these threats to you? Well, I would look at Ed Nail and Rich Gerard, because Rich has said stuff over the radio. I've said stuff over the radio, written about him, because I kind of pay attention to school superintendents in that I tell everybody, don't talk to them. If you have to go to some sort of a meeting or one-on-one with anybody in that position, don't even speak to them. Have a bunch of witnesses if you do have to. But I've been, for years I've been saying, the minute you talk to these guys, you've given them an opportunity to say that you said something you didn't say, and they'll be escorted out of the building. And so I have a history of objectifying these guys. They're all the same. This type. This Metzler type.
Jorge, is there any? I haven't read the press release from the district or anything else, but this is slanderous, really. I mean, is there any potential legal recourse you can take against the district for this kind of crap?
At this point, I'm just watching what is going on, and Donna mentioned that. But I want to make a statement to you guys because the time is running short. I want you to know you are the only media outlet that I have given a statement to, period.
Okay.
Because you're a fair group, and you would give me the chance to state my case. What I will do from here, I will continue to serve the people of Hampstead. My voice will not be silenced, because it is imperative that the voters hear what they have to know, they need to know for town meeting. And I'll be using letters to the editor and any other media is available to me to make my voice heard. And I thank you guys for letting me come on your show.
We enjoy doing it, Jorge, and Metzler has picked on the wrong guy this time. He picked on the wrong lady last time with Donna Green. He's picked on the wrong guy this time. So he shares the wealth between the genders. The guy's out of control, and guys hang in there.
We have if we were Democrats, we'd be talking about how he goes after women and minorities. It's just the way it is. Even though that's not how we picture these people. They're just smart, intelligent, hardworking activists who are out there trying to help their towns.
And they're effective.
Yeah.
So Jorge, it occurs to me when I said sort of follow the money. So you're actually saying that Metzler is spending unlimited amounts of actual school funds, taxpayer dollars, to fund a campaign which will cost the taxpayers more dollars. So
I cannot say that. No, I cannot say that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that whatever he does at the superintendent office, no one is supervising it, because as you have followed him over the years, he doesn't want anyone to come in and check the financial reports.
Got it. Okay.
So we don't know that he's doing it, but we don't know where the money is coming from. All we see are the budget reports at the end of the year or the month.
Jorge, maybe he can go back to his bad legal counsel and get more advice, because he's always saying, what I'm doing is perfectly legal. I checked with the lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And he finds himself sitting there with a dunce cap on his head in the Supreme Court.
All right, Skip.
Yeah. Hey, Jorge. They pick on one of my friends. They picked on all of us. We've got your back, and I appreciate your kind words of saying that we are fair and balanced. No, I wouldn't say that we try to be fair, but we are certainly not balanced. We are definitely biased towards those people who stand up for principles and can show what those principles are in writing. You and I share the same belief that government spending should never rise more than the average person, citizen, and government should never be placed above the citizens that pay for it. And Earl Metzler has done exactly that. So he picks on you, he picks on me, and he picks on the rest of us at Granite Rock. We are happy to support you.
Don't forget the question, cui bono. We got to find out. We got to find out who benefits from this beyond the Earl and his power.
And I think Jorge's point is that when we post this, we will post all of it. We will post everything he said. We won't edit it to make it sound the way we want it to. That's what we do.
Exactly, and that's why I've been friends with you guys since the beginning.
Well, we got another 5 or 6 minutes. Is there more to this story?
Okay.
Yep.
Hello.
Yep. Go ahead.
No, I thought that we were coming to an end.
We're on 20-minute segments now instead of 15.
Oh, terrific!
So if you have more to tell the world, because the rest of the press isn't going to get this until they hear it from us, please do.
Okay. So what I really want to know, the people in Hampstead that are listening, is that we have bigger fish to fry this year, especially in the school warrant. The $4.5 million bond issue should definitely be defeated, because we do not need the new construction. We've been flat for about 4 years, and we'll be flat through the foreseeable 10 years in enrollment. When we got the portables, that was in 1999, we had 250 plus more students in the school than we have now. Therefore, we don't need those portable classrooms. What we need are the renovations. The insulating the 1960 wing walls, change the ventilation system, put a new roof, and yes, install the sprinklers throughout the school and other minor items that we have to do. That's what we really need. But the $4.5 million is too high a price to get those things. That's why I put in a petition article number 7 for $1.2 million to cover just the renovations. That's another thing that set them off. And then that's the one that you should vote for, because that's a one-time expenditure, and it covers all the renovations that we need so far, and as long as the money goes, and that will take care of the central school upgrading. The other thing that people should know is warrant article number 8, which is the first part of separating from the SAU, where it will create, it's a 3-year process, it will create a committee to study the situation, and next year, then they'll present the plan as to how to separate. And then we'll be able to leave SAU 55 forever and leave Metzler high and dry. We have to leave that SAU. It is no longer operational for us. We need to be our own master, and we have enough talent in town, and we have the funds to be able to do it. And with technology now, we no longer need the overhead of the SAU in Timberlane.
And how does that play out in terms of the relative sizes of the schools or school districts within the SAU? In other words, if you leave, and I think you said Sandown was trying to leave, is there nothing left?
Oh, no. Timberlane is a regional school district. It's Plastow, Atkinson, Sandown, and Danville. Okay, that's one. And the other one is Hampstead. We are our own district, coterminous with the town. So there will be plenty of room, but I don't care. Let Timberlane take care of him. They're a whole bunch of sycophants that say yes to whatever he wants. And that's where Donna Green gets in trouble, because she's very much like me. She came late to the game, but she's been a quick understudy, and I've been giving her the information as to where to look.
There's a video of her on her website of they voted to censure her, and she stood up to them. It's a great video if you want to see what conservative school board members have to go through.
Yeah, and then if we go our own way, we can become. We certainly have the funds to become our own SAU, but we could also join a neighboring SAU, like Chester, or Hooksett, who is trying to join Chester, and it would be okay. We can share the superintendent. That's okay. There are many ways we can do it.
That would be okay. I mean, I think if you guys could swing it on your own, that's the best way to go, because once you start getting involved with other districts, they start having an influence over policy. And, we're big on local control here, as are you and most of our listeners. So we wish you a lot of luck on that particular front. I know that it's been a rough slog with this Earl Metzler guy. I mean, things probably weren't great before he came along, but they've certainly gone downhill rapidly ever since.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. There will be more to this as the time goes on. So, and I thank you for the publicity. But the big thing with leaving SAU 55, we'll finally get to a situation where the SAU we have to belong to an SAU by law. So at least the one we would create or join would be truly an administrative office, not a dictatorship.
Skip, you have any closing thoughts for Jorge?
Just a question. Actually, Jorge, you mentioned the school board or the school district infomercial where this line about the sniper picking off kids originally started from. If you have a link to that, let us know, and I'll get it posted up right away.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Jorge, good luck. We'll have this up in its complete 2-hour form today, but I will break out our segment at some point so that people can hear it.
Thank you, guys, and drive carefully going home.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, Jorge, good luck, and we'll talk again soon. Stay in touch.
Thanks, guys.
All righty, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Jorge Mesa-Tejada has a new set of circumstances to deal with over there in Hampstead. It's hard enough being a local official without having to deal with this crap.
He's been there forever.
He has.
So he has
he's an institution.
Knowledge.
We've got to get him back on for education segments. We were having him on once a month.
I use him all the time.
We got away with. Oh my God, the guy knows everything.
Yeah,
and he's been in the state level. So Jorge knows what he is talking about. All right, we're going to take a really short break and come right back, and we have an open segment. So let's see what it is we can figure out to talk about. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Need more GrokTALK? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks, Jorge. We'll get that up as soon as we can, since we're the only ones who have it.
Well, we're the only people that will actually play it.
That's true, the whole thing. All right, GrokTALK brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GrantedGrok.com. Check us out. Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeart. We are also now on Facebook at facebook.com/GrokTALK. We also have a Google Plus page for GrokTALK. And every morning now from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we replay this and past programs all throughout the week. And I'll try to add some evening hours as well as we proceed, and even come up with something vaguely like a schedule so you know what show I'm playing. So there's plenty of opportunities to catch a program, and we hope you check it out.
Ideally, we should make it in the side panel, but right now you're putting it sticky at the top when it's playing, right?
That is absolutely correct, and then I unsticky it when I'm done.
Then maybe Coach Metzler can watch these and sit there and stew over what we said about him, because he is a tiny little man with a very short temper, and he should not be a school superintendent anywhere.
Shouldn't be anywhere near a school. If you're a tiny little man with a short temper, that's the worst form of Napoleon complex.
All right, so we have an expert on vote fraud and a whole bunch of municipal things, and I'm sure, absolutely certain, there's something that's happened in that realm that we should be talking about.
Didn't somebody get prosecuted recently?
Yeah, one of those things that never happened to a guy named Derek Gastonguay. I guess he was prosecuted. I guess he pled guilty yesterday or was sentenced or whatever. I haven't followed that. I know who turned him in, and it's not the kind of voter fraud I was looking for. I think his residence was in Manchester, and he voted in Salem instead of where he was supposed to.
Oh, right, yep.
Didn't he vote in 2 New Hampshire towns, or tried to?
Yeah, Salem and Windham, I think, were the 2.
Yeah.
So the AG's office has prosecuted him, and I think he may have pled guilty. He has to pay a $1,000 fine with a 24% penalty, whatever that is. And I guess you can't vote for a while until they say you can. He would have to go get permission to vote again. All right, so the AG's office caught somebody. He was turned in. He's probably most known as a local Republican activist. And somebody who he may have worked on one of their campaigns, turned him in when they saw him voting in the wrong place. Kind of stupid thing to do. I'm more after the professionals that come here and do it on a regular basis over and over again. And one of those guys that we caught back on October of 2014, we caught a guy named Jared Stephen Cram.
Yes.
So, Jared...
Can we say cram down yet?
Cram down all you want. Well, he's going to get crammed down a little more, hopefully. He was an attorney from Philadelphia. He originally lived in New Hampshire. In Nashua, I think, at first, and then his family moved to Wilton, and he would vote from his parents' home. So we found out that he went to college in Pennsylvania in 1998, registered to vote there, and then came back here and ran for office in 2002 for state rep. I lose him around 2003 to 2004. I can't find any real records on him. And I now have some people helping me out of Philadelphia. There's a blog there called Philadelinquency. And you should check out Philadelinquency.
Given what you've told us in the past on this program and on the blog about how difficult it was to get anything effective done through any of the regular channels, this is great news.
Well, this guy, the group that runs Philadelinquency, I sent them an email saying, hey, I saw your blog. It's great. They do exposés on zoning and the corruption in Philadelphia. They do a pretty good job of it. And I sent him an email, said, hey, just ran into your blog, and you got anything on this Jared Stephen Cram? Boom, they emailed me back. So we've been back and forth, maybe 25 or 30 emails so far, and they said they keep adding people to the stream. Like, we got a guy that can tell you what color underwear you wore 10 years ago. I said, great. We got people that can tell you what your dog's name was 10 years ago. So this will work out well. Apparently, Jared was elected to the position of election official in 2013. So we're currently tracking it down. He was elected to something in Berks County in 2007. So there's some more records out there of Jared. But he's currently serving as what's called a Philadelphia Committee elections official of some sort. And his term goes from 2013 to 2017. So he is currently overseeing elections in Philadelphia to make sure they're fair.
Excellent.
Which is kind of odd.
While helping to commit election fraud in New Hampshire and probably other places.
Voting in Philadelphia in 2012 and in Wilton, New Hampshire in 2012. In what is, as far as I know, by reading the law, the same election. He voted in the Philadelphia primary, in Pennsylvania general primary for Obama. I imagine that's who he's campaigning for. And then he voted here in our general election and wrote a big, long article about it for the Daily Kos, which he admits a lot of stuff. His
which
family,
we linked to, yes.
Which we linked to. So we read that off. I think some of the people he took issue with in Wilton are now elected, serving in office. He has said that he, when caught, first of all, he called in. I think we called him from Rich Gerard's program, and he answered the phone and made some comments like he was going to sue us, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Well, apparently when he did a little research and found out that he had voted in 2 states and it was illegal, because voting in a primary in Philly and then the same election, the general election in New Hampshire is a crime. It's illegal. I don't care what New Hampshire says about it because New Hampshire doesn't enforce their laws in this regard. So now I find out he's elected in 2013. We're trying to figure out, was he in any office in Philadelphia in 2012, the year he voted in both states. So the guys from Phila Delinquency are looking into that. They've sent me a bunch of stuff. I linked them up with a couple people here, and we've been working at that pretty hard. But this will be fun to get to revisit Jared Stephen Cram. Now that he's sitting in office, he either has to abandon that or just suffer the lashes while he sits there. He also said that he voted in Wilton because he was sick and he was recovering from some sickness. His Facebook page...
Yeah, he's got a sickness, yeah.
His Facebook page was what they call scraped. Mm-hmm. So we have that from 2012. Apparently he took a train from Wilton to Scranton to compete in some sort of a computer game deal.
Sure,
he went to Scranton. He got sick while he was in Scranton and came home, and he was fine. So he mentions nothing about being sick after that. But it's a fabulous excuse for recuperating in New Hampshire. That's why he voted here. It was easier to vote here. It's also illegal to vote here. And in Pennsylvania, their election statute is called Code 25. The chapter is 1304, and the paragraph is number 6. When one enters another state and votes in that state's election, that person loses their residency in the Commonwealth.
So if he was in elected office...
Even no matter what, when he votes in New Hampshire, he suddenly becomes a New Hampshire citizen, according to Pennsylvania.
Right.
I can't file a complaint against him in Pennsylvania because the law says that you have to be a resident to file a complaint with this guy.
But you found some residents.
I found some residents. And they have a blog, which is
even
pretty
better,
well read in Philly. So we're going to work that out. And, if you can't
sounds like we need to link him, too.
Oh, we're going to link them up right away. These guys are really, really, really good. They're good satire, lots of details, fabulous stuff. And you know how they call people Joe Sixpack?
Yeah.
You're going to love this. They have a name for the average Philadelphia resident who just doesn't pay much attention to politics but has to pay the taxes. They call him Hoagie Mouth. I love that. Now, since I was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania, not far from where they are, I'm like an assistant Hoagie Mouth. Yes. So I've sent them that information. We'll see how that goes. We'll get them stirred up down there. And last Friday, I went to Carl Robert Gibson's hearing at Merrimack Superior Court here in town.
Oh,
the other guy we caught. That's Carl Robert Gibson, the vote thief. Yeah. From many, many, many states and many, many different places. He's being prosecuted here by the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, and they say he is from 26 Summit Street. No. He is from 117 Comanche Drive in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. He is a Kentucky resident. He voted here in 2012 when he was up here with a group of activists going after Frank Ginta. That's when he first became active in New Hampshire that I can find. He's been arrested in 6 or 7 different states for his political activism, started back in 2006 in Kentucky. He loves to protest. He loves to chain himself to things. He has a lot of spare time. Travels all around doing this. Well, he came here in 2012 and he registered to vote because we make it easy on these people. We prosecute a guy from New Hampshire who votes in other towns but actually lives in Manchester, but we don't prosecute people who live in other states and vote in New Hampshire, apparently. That's the part we fall down.
And he didn't even live at Martha Fuller Clark's house.
No.
So I mean,
but he had established a presence of his website called U.S. Uncut. But he's operating out of an apartment here somewhere in Concord. But he's actually a Kentucky resident, and I know that because he renewed his Kentucky driver's license in 2013. Ta-da!
Yeah, that's a sign. If we had a list of things that indicated your residency, that would be way up on the top.
Well, in Kentucky, when you renew your driver's license, it has to be done in person. So we know where he was on that date when he did this. And in Kentucky, for $5.50 on my credit card, I bought a copy of his driving record. So I have that. I mean, these are the things we kind of should have here, so we can track who's voting here. But that's okay. Since they're interstate voters, I can track them in the other states. So he was in last Friday, sitting in there waiting for his attorney, which appears now to be an older member of the law firm. So I went in.
Does that mean things have got more serious?
I think things are getting more serious because Carl didn't have a big smile on his face. If you look at all the pictures we've posted on CNHT.org.
Did he recognize you when you sidled up to them on the?
He wouldn't even look in my direction, but his attorney did. And his attorney quickly pointed at him.
Did you just go, hi, a little finger wave?
His attorney pointed at him and went, "You out." So Carl got up and left the building. Because I checked the different rooms where lawyers would meet with their clients, and he didn't appear to be there.
And they're so afraid that they didn't even want him in the same building as you in case you heard something.
He says stupid things. You know, the last time I saw him, he came up, put his arm on me, and said I should chant some Buddhist chant. So he wasn't cocky or snotty like that, or smart this time. He looked scared to death. So apparently they're going to go. They were picking a date to try him. So the next hearing for this guy, this marshmallow, will be on April 22nd, and then jury selection begins in June.
And again, Robert Gibson, C. Robert Gibson was the guy who attempted to impersonate Yvonne Dean Bailey to claim she was dropping out of the race.
Well, that's what he's in trial for, voter suppression.
Yeah,
right?
He's in for voter suppression, which I believe is RSA 666, and if that's not bad enough, it's 0.6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it probably goes to infinity, 66666 right on. Yeah. So
it's like pi, it just keeps going.
And he has a history. He has a history of doing this. So it's going. And he admitted to the this paper here in town that he did it.
I know that's the best part. Yeah, that was me.
They did investigate.
I had a couple beers and I pretended to be Yvonne Dean Bailey.
Well, this one time they did investigative journalism. They probably didn't hope to do.
Right.
They've exposed one of their own, a left winger. Yeah. So he is now awaiting trial for that, and some other misdemeanor of shuffling papers that he shouldn't have his hands on, I think is the statute. So anyways.
Did he stuff them down his pants like Sandy Burglar?
No.
Skip, chip in for goodness sake.
I guess they consider the tweet a physical document. So like in the right to know law. Mm-hmm. Paper documents and electronic documents are called physical documents. Okay, so they're the same thing.
It's definitely not going away.
No, it's
that tweets forever.
So there he was. I should have stationed someone outside to see what car he got into or something like that. But right now, it's really over for him, unless he pleads guilty and moves on. But we're still tracking him to see who he's associated with. But Maureen Mann and the lefties in this state know who he is. He's been here before, and he wrote a little e-book about taking on Frank Ginta. And when somebody like that comes from out of state and they're with people from Credo PAC, that's where the money comes from for our campaigns. Mm-hmm. Very difficult to win campaigns in New Hampshire because so much out-of-state money comes here. And this is the type of creep that comes with that money. On the left side, we know.
I'm glad you mentioned out-of-state money in New Hampshire elections. I got a little thing to say about the AOT campaign and their constant begging. But we'll let Skip out for a while. Skip, say something.
Yeah, I look at this and go, gee, finally the AG's office, basically when slapped in the face with a fish broadside, has finally had to take an effort in actually showing that, well, maybe there is some voter fraud. Yeah, they're calling it voter suppression, but it really is voter fraud, because you are defrauding the regular voters here in New Hampshire, and I just hope they put this guy around. And Ed, real kudos on you for getting a scalp.
Well, I've turned into a stalker, and I didn't know I was good at it,
Oh, yes, you are. I think any conservative activist who is, and this shouldn't even be just a conservative activist. It should be any regular voter who's listening to this should be giving you a round of applause and an attaboy for basically saying, I'm going to go after these guys using my own time, a lot of my own time, money and effort, and try to do the job that government won't do. And we have seen it under Republican as well as Democrat governors, Republican and Democrat attorney generals. We've heard the stories of you going to the AG's office with binders and binders of people to go investigate, and they go, And I think now they're finally starting to take it a little more seriously because you've just been grinding and grinding away at this. Now they have to pay attention. And certainly they got egg on their face when James O'Keefe did that series of videos here in New Hampshire at the last primary season. And I think there's a little bit of CYA going on as well. But kudos to you for getting this guy in front of a judge.
Yeah, thanks, and then thanks for posting all this stuff with the fabulous pictures, like that monkey I put up with Earl Metzler.
You like that?
Oh man!
I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm its editor. I take care of the pictures and I post his posts for him because Facebook apparently WordPress is a stretch. So he's good with that other, I forget what it was. Yeah, there's another website, NH Insider. You're okay with their interface, their blog editor. But this one, he just sends it to me, and hopefully I get it up the same day because I got to dig it out of my email.
Well, that monkey.
That was the monkey that you were talking about.
The monkey lost his court case the same day Metzler did.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing the comparison. I'm thinking the only thing different is the monkey doesn't shave his head.
Right.
So, but with these
and
guys,
the monkey's not a coach.
Without these out-of-state voters that come here, leave a paper trail, and it's easy to pick up, and they've actually led me to more and more of each other by their LinkedIn sites, by who they get photographed with, and it's come down to a pattern. I can pretty much tell you when they're 15 or 16 years old whether they're not going to come here from another state and steal a vote by their backgrounds. It's amazing how they fall into a certain strata. You know, it's.
Are you saying that you're effectively the thought police for these punks? You could actually figure out which ones are going to come here and cause trouble?
I inhabit that tiny little spot in their mind where a conscience should be, I think, right now. So we're hoping to get a couple of heads on stakes, and I think Carl Robert Gibson is going to be the first, and then hopefully Jared Stephen Cram. He may have to step down from this thing in Philly, but it serves as an example to the other out-of-state activists that come here who interface with each other. They know who each other are. They went to the same schools. They worked on the same campaigns. Remember the girl that was laughing at the fire in New York City? Mm-hmm. She was associated with one of the people we caught here. Mm-hmm. So it gets to be a smaller and smaller world for these people as they come to New Hampshire. And we have one that we're tracking, and I'm hoping we can use the guy's name shortly. But he approached somebody who knew me, and he was campaigning. And he said he was campaigning here on behalf of a candidate, and he was going to vote here. And the person warned him not to. And this guy says, "We're aware of Ed Nail." So that's my little badge of honor, you know, that the campaigns actually have to talk about it. Be careful, he's out there. And that when they say my name, it's Gerard at Large, it's Granite Rock, all of our various CNHT website. I'm trying to have our CNHT website as basically a fact check. Mm-hmm. You can go there and look these people up, see their pictures. So we have Gastonguay right on the front page right now, and it's as though the guy thought, someday I might need a mug shot, so I'll take one now and use it. So we found that on the internet. And we have dozens of pictures of Carl Gibson. He is not going to want to see on the internet when he gets convicted. We have a picture of him in gold lame pants. So when they sentence him to jail, he'll be in those.
All right, we're coming up to the end of the segment, the end of the hour. Next hour, we're scheduled to have Kevin Kervick in. He's not here yet, but hopefully he shows up in the next 5 or 6 minutes. And then Doug Sachletben from the Club for Growth. Everybody hang in there. This is GrokTALK, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers right here at 8 I hadn't done that yet today. 8 North Main Street, Concord, New Hampshire. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteGrok.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is GrokTALK.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALK.
Welcome to GrokTALK for January 16th, 2016. Here's a few important stories you may not be following. Mr. Obama's Al-Qaeda on the run has struck again, battling with security forces of the West African country of Burkina Faso. Islamist fighters took hostages at the Splendid Hotel in the capital of Ouagadougou. AQIM, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, that's AQIM on the run, is taking credit. According to a report by Reuters, the gunmen stormed the five-story hotel, burning cars and firing into the air to drive back crowds before security forces arrived. This is a hotel sometimes used by French troops based in Chad who are tasked with combating Islamic militants across West Africa. The BBC is reporting 23 killed of 18 different nationalities. The Burkinabe Communications Director, Remy Dangenou, told the BBC that between 6 and 7 militants had attacked the Splendid, adding that they had been staying at the hotel as guests. While the siege at the Splendid Hotel has ended, the AQIM militants on the run are not finished. They have now occupied a second hotel just down the street. Back in November, AQIM killed 20 people in the capital of Mali. Boko Haram, another militant Islamic group, has killed thousands in northeastern Nigeria during a 6-year insurgency, and in 2015 extended its attacks into neighboring countries Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. And yes, they continue to kidnap and enslave girls and young women without regard to however many hashtag-wielding neo-feminists express their false outrage on Twitter. USA Today reports that Senator Bernie Sanders, the 74-year-old Vermont independent socialist, will head into the Democratic presidential debate Sunday with a 19-point lead over frontrunner Hillary Clinton among Democratic and independent women ages 18 to 34. So independent and Democrat women between the ages of 18 and 34 prefer the 74-year-old man over the woman 50% to 31%. Sounds like a women's issue, if you ask me. Speaking of women's issues, Kimberly Kay at LegalInsurrection.com is reporting that YouTube star Ingrid Nilsson, in a recent interview with President Obama, asked him why women's feminine care products are taxed as luxury items in over 40 states. Not to miss a chance at a softball, the president said that he had no idea why states would tax these as luxury items. I suspect it's because men were making the laws when those taxes were passed, he said. And I think it's pretty sensible for women in those states that you just mentioned to work to get those taxes removed. If you're going to blame men, Mr. President, blame men who like sales taxes. Those would most likely be Democrat men. But to be fair, as residents of New Hampshire, we can tell you that Democrat men, gay Democrat men, Democrat women, lesbian Democrat women, heck, all Democrats, they love taxes. And while we're on the subject, any effort by Republicans to reduce taxes or spending is met with whining, crying, chest-pounding, caterwauling, and doomsday predictions about the cost to society as we know it and women's health services in particular. GrokTALK has started its own Facebook page. We announced that last week. Yesterday, we opened up a space over at Google+. Please take a moment to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/GrokTALK and or add us to your circles on Google's social media platform. Small calendar note, Croydon versus the New Hampshire Department of Education, the second part of that exciting little event, will occur at the Sullivan County Superior Courthouse in Newport, New Hampshire on Wednesday, March 9th at 1 p.m. You are encouraged to attend to support local choice in New Hampshire. In Hour 2, we will have Kevin Kervick in to talk about campus speech and a group called Students for Common Sense, and Doug Sachletben from Club for Growth will share some thoughts about President Obama's State of the Union address this past week. We also welcome Ed Nail to the studio as this week's guest host. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more GrokTALK.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Need more GrokTALK? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
All right, if you're listening live and you have to go driving, especially if you're anywhere north of Manchester, please be careful. We have freezing rain, so the roads are very slippery. You may notice there's cars off the road with their headlights pointing up into the sky, for example. That's going to happen on a day like this. Snow's almost better, but it's what we got, and so there we go. Remind you that GrokTALK is brought to you by a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Listen to us every weekday at GraniteGrok.com and Spreaker.com from 9 to 11 a.m. As we broadcast this in past programs, you can also listen on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart Radio. We're working on expanding our various venues. Of course, the RockNHCR.com also carries the program every day from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, and you can listen live right now, if you happen to be listening to live.
You're
Thank
stuck
you very
in the
much.
house. You better be listening.
Yeah, you're stuck in the house. Oh, I forgot to turn that down.
You're not shoveling snow.
There we go. No, you're not shoveling snow. You're just watching your driveway turn into a skating rink. You know, we had the weather. We had a little snow over the holidays, and then it got hard like ice, and then we had that powder like last week.
Yeah, or in between
taking out
rain. I mean, the first bunch of
taking
hearts,
out the dog, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So that's how the roads are without the snow. So behave yourselves. Skip, you still there?
Yeah, and I'd rather have snow. I feel like I'm trapped indoors again. That's all right. I can find this blogging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can.
I have to apologize for the lack of quantity of doing anything lately.
Well, I haven't done a lot this week because I've been working on this whole daily broadcast thing that I have to run off my laptop for 2 hours every morning. I have to have it all ready to go before I get to work, and then when I get there, I got to trigger it at the right time, and then I can go off and do my business, and it runs itself. But that and working on the new format, getting the Google Plus page done, getting the Facebook page done, trying to figure out when we're going to do some marketing and advertising on Spreaker. So I have not posted much this week either.
Been busy much, though?
Busy.
I've been stalking people.
Yeah, my work days tend to be very full, and then every so often I find something that really jumps out at me, and I just got to post it. I couldn't resist the word mangling when I heard that Haier had bought all of GE's appliance business, so I had to put the bit up about Bad Haier Day.
Bad hay a day. All right, Kevin's not here. I don't know. I'm going to email him and Facebook him and IM and see if he's off the road somewhere or if we had an issue and a scheduling problem that I didn't get an update on. In the meantime, Mike, pick a topic and start going with it because I have to go do this other stuff.
No, there's no problem. I mean, first of all, during the debate, I thought that Trump was more mellow and better informed, and I think there were some pretty good exchanges. Trump certainly isn't giving any ground. On the other hand, Cruz got off some really good zingers. This stuff over the New York values has got legs, and it isn't in favor of Cruz either. Of Trump either.
He didn't die in a ditch. Yay!
Good. It's likely to work out to Cruz's benefit, but. The thing that got my attention was near the end of the exchange on that. It just depends how closely you've been following some of the utterances of Trump on the campaign trail, for example. But at the end of that exchange, Cruz came out with this one-liner. Not that many conservatives come out of Manhattan. And you had to have been there when Cruz started doing well in Iowa. The first thing that happened is as Trump's out there trying to court the evangelicals and say, not that many evangelicals came out of Cuba.
Well, they got to pat each other on the back for that. It's pretty good give and take.
I think so. In spite of the fact that Trump is clearly trying to make sure he comes out on top because he sees Cruz as a genuine threat. I've been saying for weeks, slowly, catchy Trumpy. Cruz has this nice, steady trajectory. Trump is trying to make sure he comes out on top, but he's trying not to do too much damage along the way, I think, and Cruz likewise.
And they'll wind up making it a two-man deal.
I think they will, because that deal is going to do so much damage to the Washington cartel.
All right.
And they are so deathly afraid.
Let's talk to our guest.
That's right. I'm enjoying this conversation too.
That's okay.
There was also the blog line,
or maybe not.
Blog line of the day from Richard Viguerie a couple of days ago. Blog line of the week. Part of the reason they're afraid of Cruz is he's not going to just go along with the program. He's going to burn down the entire rat-filled, plague-infested warehouse that is Washington, D.C. I mean, it was a pretty sharp line. It was very good. I'll have to post it.
All right. There are other progressive plagued rat-infested houses in the world, and most of them are on college campuses. And Kevin has come to us with loads of personal experience from this realm, as well as a new project, which we would like you to tell us about.
Yes. Well, thanks for having me. The roads were terrible. An hour from Nashua, so I apologize I'm late. But
it's okay.
A lot of cars off the road, like 6 cars off the road. So
along Route 3 and 93?
Yeah, 393, 293. People going about 25, so just slushy.
It got worse over time. I came up here at about 75 mile an hour.
Yeah, it got bad over time, unfortunately. So, yes. So I'm embroiled in this campus controversy stuff. So, and it's really heating up. If you guys have been following, that's what's happening. There's a great resource called College Fix that I keep referencing on my Facebook page, and it's a newspaper that's written by conservative professors who are mentoring, wannabe kind of conservative journalists throughout the country, and they're exposing all kinds of stuff that's happening on campus. And every day there's 7 stories that pop up that are just, completely out of control. So I wanted to do something about it. So I got a great job at Montana State. So I was teaching a class called Freshman Seminar, which is an awesome class. Essentially, it's a class in critical thinking. And that's how it's described. In a college, wow. Yeah. So they want to teach the freshmen how to be critical thinkers.
Is this an online course? Or
No, it's a face-to-face.
You actually go to Montana and...
Yeah, so I was out there for a while. I was out there for 4 months.
I was wondering where you were because you left.
Yeah.
And you were gone. And I'm like, where'd Kevin go?
So I left on a kind of a working sabbatical for the summer. And so I was working in Yellowstone for 3.5 months. Then I applied to Montana State while I was there, got this job. I thought I would take it. So I've been out there for 8 months. But I missed New Hampshire, wanted to come back for the primary season especially, so that's probably why I'm back. But great job in critical thinking. It's the course that all the freshmen are mandated to take. They're small classes, so you really get to engage the students. They love it. It's a combination of philosophy, sociology, psychology, contemporary issues. We talked about Plato. We talked about, Martin Luther King. So all sorts of, value, different positions come in. But Montana State is a kind of a center-right sort of university. Western schools tend to be a little bit different than the Eastern schools. But, like all the schools, they've got all the diversity clubs and all the students for diversity, students to, the queer students, the gay students, the women students, all these groups are very active and prominent, and they're always displaying their stuff. And there's very few, sort of middle-of-the-road or conservative kind of organizations. So I wanted to try to mentor and support those aspiring groups. So I'm starting a group called Students for Common Sense, which is really a group that battles political correctness. And so our idea would be to just promote ideas or say things out loud that are true that nobody is allowed to say.
Touchy.
Real touchy, yeah. So
do you guys have little shirts with mascots
we
on
will eventually.
Flak jackets.
If we can get some funding, so I'm hoping who's listening out in your wonderful audience.
I suggest an Indian, something like that on there, maybe.
We'll do that.
A Western Indian.
Yeah. But at our first group, we just set up a table and we just listed a whole bunch of ideas that are basically, commonsensical. Girls are different than boys, for instance. Things like that we would say, and we just kind of promoted them on the table. So people would come by and kind of look at that. So My idea is that if you just start saying those things out loud enough, you'll create a lot of tension, but you may provide an alternative. And then a number of students came up and said, yeah, this is interesting, or some people were like, I'm not supposed to be looking at this, I'm not supposed to be agreeing with you, that kind of stuff.
There goes their whole elementary school education.
Exactly. And, there's we've talked before, Steve, there's a delusional, this is a mental illness we're talking about. We've got a whole bunch of people that have been indoctrinated with just crazy ideas.
Liberalism is a mental disease.
It's a mental disease. And so what I'm trying to do as a family therapist is, kind of provide an alternative to that. There are other ideas that are actually true. And in my classes, I did that, but in a very balanced way. I'm not reverse indoctrination, just presenting ideas that are research based.
If you could teach critical thinking in a balanced way across a lot of campuses or campi, you would get to a situation where liberalism would mostly weed itself out.
Yes, that's what happened. So ours is an infiltration strategy, to kind of gradually go in, speak the truth, provide an alternative to the dogma that they're exposed to, and hopefully over time. And I think that's happening. I think we're at a watershed moment where these ideas are starting to be challenged, and the ridiculousness of this social justice nonsense is starting to be exposed to some extent. And there's some psychotic breaks happening. People are really worried that their whole worldview is falling apart.
Their whole worldview may be falling apart, but also all of their employment opportunities and their ability to live as well as their parents or grandparents is simply falling apart. And they're beginning to realize that Hillary can't cut it, and frankly, Bernie neither.
Exactly, and I think you put your finger on it. This is a massive jobs program, right? So there are tons of... If you look at what Black Lives Matter wants... They want diversity clubs. They want more professors. They want money for their social justice.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
Every time.
And your activism uncovers this all the time. And it's all about the cash, and it's guised in this sort of do-gooder language.
Yeah, he gets to live all over the country.
Right.
Different addresses.
Yeah. But the protesters come out, and the protesters help the leaders demand these things, and it's about the money. But do the individual protesters get a better job, a higher wage, or any more chances? No, they get their worthless degrees, but their leaders get all the money and all the kudos.
They're useful idiots, useful idiots.
Well, the left needs them in quantity.
Yeah, exactly.
I had an opportunity once. I was asked to be a presenter. I wouldn't say educator or teacher. At a function it was actually worth a college credit of some sort at NEC in Henniker. And it was on municipal local activism in presidential primaries. So it was me versus the Sierra Club and AFL-CIO, I believe. So I show up, and I'm listening to the start off. It's maybe 15 students, and one of them was, oh boy, anyway, in his 70s probably, and. So we started off, and I said, well, I run. And one guy was late. So the two of us are beginning, and the Sierra Club starts first, and I think I was second. And I said, well, with us, we provide information to the candidates, local stuff.
Yeah.
Like, here's what happened to my friend Jorge because of your federal program. Here's what happened to Steve because of your federal program. So we handled that. And I said, and we also do a lot of talk radio. I said, talk radio is where it's at. So I said, you don't get a lot of the slippery flyers in your mailbox. You open your mailbox and 15 slippery glossies come sliding out at you. They don't even burn in the fireplace. They just curl up. And that's basically what I'm telling these students. And they're looking at me, and they go to the other person on my right. She tells them kind of, their end of it. We have this much money, and we do this, and we canvass. And the guy comes in that's late. And they said, oh, would you like to add to this? He goes, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I did. I'm late, blah, blah, blah. He goes, the secret to this? Talk radio, which I just told them. So I get to do the eye roll. So it was a time where we were allowed to go grab some lunch, and I headed out to the hallway. They had a little table set up with some apples and stuff on it. So I go to grab something, and a guy leans over to me, a college kid, shaved head and earrings, multiple earrings. He goes, you got a lot more friends in here than you think.
And that's what happens. They're afraid. That's what
they don't
happens.
want to say it
They'll
out
tell
loud.
you. No one says that. So they kind of go like this. Even professors. There's a lot of conservative professors.
So Hollywood and college campi, they're there, but they're afraid to show themselves.
Yeah. So I'm trying to bring them out of the shadows.
One of the students was Dave Carney.
Oh, really?
Do we need an amnesty program?
And
to bring them out of the shadows.
All right, we're going to take a really short break. We'll continue with this conversation because we just started, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. We have Kevin Kervick talking to us about Students for Common Sense. We have the cultural nonsense we're going to discuss in a couple seconds. Ed Nail, of course, our guest host. Mike is to my left, and Skip is on the phone still. And we are going to turn on some more microphones and keep the conversation going. So I have to step out of the room for a second, so please.
If you won't often catch me to your left on anything else.
No. I could just turn this way and you'd be to my right. So.
Kevin.
Yeah, so I could talk a little bit more. So Students for Common Sense, I think if we could push it around the country, it could make a real difference on campuses. So that's my hope, is to really get out there and start doing it in different places. I've been at 5 or 6 universities now, and I've tried to do the same thing everywhere I go. And if you act with differentiation like you did at that meeting, Ed, you can change the culture just by not going along with the prevailing groupthink.
Well, the other thing is, if you're going to have conservatives, I think you have to have conservatives with confidence, because a lot of the people that come off as conservatives, the minute they're challenged, they back up.
Back right off.
And I see that on there's the 5 on Fox.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little blonde there that used to work for George Bush.
Yeah.
A spokesman for George Bush. And whenever she says something, the Democrats get caught. Let's say Democrats got caught doing something. She'll go, well, that was clearly illegal. But the Republicans do it, too.
Is that Dana
Carino?
Carino?
Dana Carino, or whatever her name.
I know.
She does that every single time.
She
makes an excuse for her own so-called positions. Peggy Noonan is another one. It was all on the Obama camp. As soon as he got elected, boom, she's there.
Yeah, they all back off.
She knows how to write a conservative speech, but she won't defend the conservative position.
So you need a new crop to come out and talk to these kids and say, oh, well, look, he really meant it. A lot of times it's going to be by military.
I agree.
Somebody says, oh, I was in combat and such time, and everybody there has to pay attention because they obviously weren't.
That's where our strength is going to be. We have all these returning veterans. My class was half veterans, and those guys, they're going to...
They cut the mustard right out of it.
And they have credibility.
Yeah,
credibility. So we got to keep doing this. I found a young guy out there. He was trying to start a group called Students for Concealed Carry, and guns aren't not my main issue. But I was impressed by the kid because he was smart as heck. He was a sophomore from a small town in northeastern Montana, and he was trying to start this group, which is part of a national organization called Students for Concealed Carry. So on the heels of University of Texas Austin, which just passed concealed carry legislation. So they got an override. They got the governor to allow students or anybody on campus to carry. So he's trying to replicate that. And so I read an article in the paper, a local paper, and they had hundreds of Facebook comments, major explosion of stuff. And he said he wants to make it a formal group on campus, but he can't find a faculty sponsor because they're all afraid to sponsor.
Yeah.
So that sort of got me going. So I texted him and said, "What's this with?" And he told me a story. He actually approached 3 or 4 professors, and they all said it's too big of a career risk. I really can't do it.
What town is it?
Bozeman,
Montana.
So it's a big gun
state. It's a town in
state.
Montana I've heard of.
Yeah, it's a great town actually. It's not like Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Actually,
I was in Missoula 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Without the ocean.
That's a college town, too.
Way more lefty up there. University of Montana is a hippie town. Yeah. Montana State's a little bit more balanced that way, but still a pretty, hard left kind of school. So I approached this kid, and I thought, maybe I'll do it. And I thought, it is a big career risk, come to think of it. So after thinking about it for about a month or so and talking to him, I said, I'm just going to do it. Why not? So I agreed to be the faculty sponsor, which was great because he already had 10 members that were required. And boom, as soon as he got a sponsor, submitted the paperwork, it's now an official group on campus, which means he's going to be able to do all his stuff, advertise his things, get people in. But before I did it, I had spoken with somebody who I don't want to give her a name, but she's kind of high up in administration, and cautioned me, and she said, wow, I would stay away from that. It could really affect your career. Could end your career, she says to me. It could end your career. And I'm looking at, why? And she said, well, if I didn't know what a nice guy you were, what a smart guy you were, I would think you were a nut job. This is exactly what she said to me. And she's speaking to me as if I don't understand how this plays, how this game is played.
Yeah, right.
As if I was going to, really? They're going to think I'm a nut job? Or really? You mean they're going to try to assassinate me? Oh, is that what they would do? So I said, okay, I appreciate your feedback, and thought about it for a while and decided to do it anyway. Just because I was so inspired by this kid. And this is one of those young conservatives that's really going to fight, from a, conservative, great, small town kind of kid, and he's going to fight. So decided to do that. And this is the first time I've told this aspect of the story. But about 2 weeks later, a performance issue cropped up in my the advising I was doing. It was a very minor kind of issue, but I got kind of called on the carpet for that. And I knew right away what was happening because my student evaluations were excellent across the board. The advising I was doing was really good. I'm providing a different kind of voice on campus. So part of the reason I decided to come home is I didn't want to make too much of an issue of it because I know how these things kind of play out. But that's what they do. I mean, they're going to find, rather than directly go after you, they'll find some other way to, sort of make you. So if I were to complain, then they would say, well, it's just because you have a disgruntled employee kind of issue. So it's kind of what happened. I'm still trying to decide where to go with it. I'm still officially the sponsor for this group. And I hope to go back in the fall and teach again. So if they were to say the group has to end and you can't, then I may fight back a little bit more. But I think that I inspired this kid and gave him some hope, and he's got a lot of others aspiring kind of conservative activists on campus involved, and hopefully we're going to start some
Make sure they read our blog and listen to our show.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first time I told that story publicly, so I may actually send it back to them and let them know that.
Absolutely. So, listen, you've got the Students for Common Sense. This gentleman's got his activist group for concealed carry on campus. How about how we find those online, and we can share that with our readers and get some more attention. Because we're not just a local blog. We get readership from all over too.
Yeah.
Germany, Japan.
So just Google Students for Concealed Carry. They've got a great Facebook page. It's a national organization, and they're very active. Students for Concealed Carry. If you want to do Students for Concealed Carry at Montana State University, you'll get the Facebook page for that particular group. But Students for Common Sense is the webpage is commonsensecommunitybuilders.com. commonsensecommunitybuilders.com. And you'll find Common Sense Community Builders, Students for Common Sense, and another group I'm trying to launch, which is Coaches and Therapists for Common Sense. And I'm trying to get conservative human services professionals to kind of come out of the closet as well. So I feel like coming out as a conservative in a human services organization or education is similar to kind of coming out of the closet as a gay or lesbian. Right, it's the same process. You sort of look for safe places, and you test people out, and can I say this out loud? And you see how they respond.
Well, so haven't things come a long way? Because now you don't have to creep out of the closet as a gay or lesbian, but my goodness, you have to be very careful who you admit you're a conservative to.
You'll be a nut job. You'll be called a nut job immediately.
Je suis un nut job.
So support that group. I know there's a lot of gun owners in New Hampshire especially, but Students for Concealed Carry is a major important issue because if you look at what's happening on campuses around the country, they're safe. They're gun-free zones, and there's a lot of violence occurring, and we're living in scary times.
Well, in the true SJW fashion, in a real world of diversity and equality, there would be a concealed carry studies class at UNH.
And there should be.
There should be. Yeah, absolutely. Skip. You there? Skip's gone. Okay, turn that up. He's shoveling the ice off his driveway. All right, so what else is going on, and what else should we be talking about in the campus culture and obviously free speech?
I think professors are wanting to come out. I think they're scared to death. One, there's a lot of funding on the line. They don't want to lose grants. But universities are just so conflict avoidant, risk avoidant. Anything that would draw attention to the university.
When comedians don't want to go there, you know it's bad.
Yeah, it's real bad. So I think that giving permission to, professors especially to be able to speak more common sense would make a really huge difference. But the other scandal that's occurring in colleges is the administrative costs are now astronomical relative to the.
Yeah, it's where the money is.
It's where the money is. So we're paying administrators astronomical salaries, and the ratio of administration to professor now is totally out of control. In the past, professors did all the stuff. They were on all the committees. They even worked as clerks. They did, but now you've got this massive bureaucratic, administrative research class.
So I think there's actually two reasons for that. On the one hand, you said all the bureaucracy, all the paperwork. The professors used to do their own clerking effectively, like barking papers and keeping records of their students. The administrative state demands so much record keeping that you have to hire an entire cadre of professionals to take care of it. So if you dismantle the administrative state, you can do that too. But the other thing is, one of Skip's favorite hobby horses in education is your overhead ratio, just like it should be in business. Right. And is what he always used to give his own school district hell over. And I think it's time to give the colleges hell over the administrative ratio, the overhead ratio.
And I know Cruz would do that. I mean, we need a conservative that's going to go in and say, what is up with this administrative cost? It's completely out of control. We have advisors for this, but the biggest problem is Title IX. Title IX was probably one of the worst laws ever enacted. I mean, it ties the hands of administrators, and they're so scared to be in violation of Title IX that they're just giving in to everything. I mean,
was that Clinton era? Or was it older?
I think it was started before that. I'm not sure when it was ratified, but I think it started before that.
H.W. Bush got bamboozled into a few bad things, too.
Yeah. And that train was already rolling, I think, But it really does tie the hands of administration because they're so afraid to be in violation. We all have to go to training on Title IX. You can't say certain things. They're so afraid of the campus rape culture kind of thing, and nothing can be said or done, So that law has to be repealed, because it really is forcing the hands, of somebody.
Well, they could go too far. I mean, doesn't Sharia law require a campus rape culture?
It does in Cologne, Germany.
It's the new normal.
Oh, don't get me started about that. I'm so angry about that.
We've had quite a few.
Cologne. It doesn't smell good.
My father-in-law is from Cologne, Germany, and I've been there several times, and I've been to the cathedral right by the train station. It's an amazing place.
It's like they're in New Orleans.
It's unbelievable. And to have that happen there is, I
was on a train in Munich, and my wife was on my left, and two other people we were traveling with were sitting across from us.
Yeah.
And on the right, across the skin of the aisle, is some 15, 16-year-old girl drunk. She could barely stand up. She flops herself down. She passes out. Two Arab guys carried her off.
Oh, God.
They're sitting next to her, looking right and left, right, and I'm going to my wife. I think this is like a teenager over here.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
So, I'm thinking passengers might say something. Everybody just kept looking at their pocketbook or staring off the side. I'm going, son of a God. This is 2001.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Did you hear with the Prime Minister of Hungary, I guess it was this morning, really called out Merkel, saying that this is the biggest crisis, the biggest scandal in the
10 million more on the way.
They have a problem. I posted an article last night, I believe, about them trying to arm themselves. And you have to be a registered hunter or a marksman to have a firearm.
And your firearm stays in another location. You don't
take
it home.
And so they can get air guns, which look like handguns, but they're just air guns, and pepper spray. And that's fine and dandy if you're in a one-on-one encounter, but when you're talking mobs, that's not very useful. So, my premise was that it's interesting to see that they lost that right to self-defense a long time ago, And now, maybe a generation or two later, they're wondering why they don't have it, and they really wish they did.
And they're counting on the police who don't come, don't show up,
never
and don't arrest.
Or the police are afraid to be politically incorrect, like happened in Yorkshire and Birmingham in England. It's the same problem. You get to the point where it's improper to challenge these people. The hell it's not. Shoot their you-know-whats off and cart them off to jail.
And a lot of us have been arguing against political correctness for many years, and it's dangerous ethno-masochism. It's not a minor inconvenience. It's potentially the end of civilization, this political correctness. So that's why I'm so adamant to fight it, because I think it's much more serious than what we really give. But the term ethno-masochism is something I really enjoy. Germans are so afraid to be nationalistic or ethnically conscious because of the Hitler experience that they've gone so far in the other direction now.
They went through a couple of world wars where they were the aggressor, and they're afraid to come out of their closet and express any kind of national aggressive pride.
They need to find some middle ground somewhere between totalitarianism and just bending over and taking it.
The Japanese have crossed that Rubicon. By and large, they're moving towards having a little more than a defense force. They're actually putting together some serious self-defense and military, and they damn well
the Germans
should,
will fight too. The Italians not so much, but
well,
the Germans will fight. I talked to a lot of NATO soldiers when I was working with the military as a contractor, and they all said that not NATO's but Americans working with NATO. They said the Germans will fight.
The Belgians. Well, have you ever shaken hands with the Belgian? I don't want to generalize too much, but let's just say that a limp fish is a fairly good approximation. On the other hand, and again, it's not 100% generic, but after the Second World War in Britain at least, the school kids had constant jokes about Italian tanks that had 1 forward speed and 5 reverse.
There was I saw a show, this was years ago, somebody was writing a review about a program where they were emphasizing the expertise in Italian non-lethal warfare, and the remark was, well, when has that ever not been the case since at least Rome?
The old, you buy an Italian rifle, it's never been fired and only dropped once.
I'm sure that's no longer a generalization, but my goodness, that reputation unfortunately got earned.
Well, there's a new parody site that I think is one of those parody sites that's designed to actually be true site, and it's called the White Student Unions, right? Yeah. So it's been popping up all over the country in response to Black Lives Matter, and they're using some hysterical parody, using the same nomenclature of Black Lives Matter, but with kind of white stereotypes, and they're using the term PED, people of European descent. Mm-hmm. And so instead of saying that women are disenfranchised, they're saying we PEDs are disenfranchised all over the country, and especially on universities.
So if you like these people, does that make you a pedophile? Maybe. I mean, that's just a bad term.
No, if you study them, if you research them, you're a pedophile.
Maybe we should have
with a hyphen in the middle.
We should have an insurge of immigration of Germans who don't like to be raped. Maybe we should have 10 million of them come here.
Let's take them in.
That would be okay. I'd be all right with that.
Let's take them in.
Executive order.
Back about the time you had your experience on that train, Ed, the main problem with immigration to Germany was actually Turkish at the time, rather than
work visas,
rather than Middle Eastern Arabs. Yeah. And Britain's problem during the 90s and early 2000s was in fact Polish. Now those are good people. It was the British form of cheap labor.
Yeah. When I was in Brussels, I used to go hop on a tram and take it all the way out into the country where it stopped and reversed and came back in. Yeah. And there was a point in time when you went through clickety-clack on that train through Turkish neighborhoods.
Oh, yeah.
For a long way.
Yeah, Belgium especially. Yeah. The conductor on the train in Belgium last time I was there said to us out of the blue, there's too many Arabs in this town. Saw we were Americans and said, you guys got to know, we got too many Arabs. They were really concerned. This was 5 years ago. Yeah.
Don't worry, it'll get worse.
Yeah, it's getting worse. All right, we're gonna take a break, and Mike's gonna call Doug Sachletben at Club for Growth, and we're gonna talk about Obama's State of the Union right after I turn off some microphones, and we take a little clickety clack of our own. Hang on there.
Hi, Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
All right, welcome back to Grok Talk. Almost done. One more guest. Yes, we are playing this in honor of Mr. David Bowie, who passed away this week from cancer, I believe it was. And, of course, Alan Rickman died, and we talked about that earlier.
Oh, man, what a great bad guy.
And Dan Haggerty. So,
what a great bear guy.
He was a great bear guy. All right, we've had this gentleman on before. He's communications director for Club for Growth, and we love Club for Growth. We'd like to welcome to the program Doug Sachletben. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. All right, so there was a State of the Union show this week, and we've had a little bit of conversation about it so far, but we brought you in to get some analysis of what it was that happened. Now, I didn't see it, but I've read a lot of commentary, and I have two questions, I guess. One, is there any point to these anymore? And two, was there any point to what Obama said?
I really saw that speech as, and I was forced to be one of those that edits it and watch the whole thing. But I really saw that as his way of sort of bookending from 2008. He came out, as we all know, as this candidate who promised hope and change, and how he would bring folks together. And a lot of the latter part of that speech was this theme of politics is broke, and there's this partisanship, and both sides need to come together. And my sense was a lot of it was just what he's done all throughout his presidency, which is kind of the blame-shifting model of, here's why I didn't fulfill what I promised back in 2008 of hope and change. It's because I came to Washington and was shocked to find that both parties don't all get together, and the fact that he contributed to the highly partisan atmosphere. I mean, that didn't come up in the speech, but it really was just a message of, you can go on from here and fulfill the rest of my dream if you all just come together, but we couldn't, and so I didn't get to do all I wanted to do. Again, this is the guy who 3 days into office back in 2009, House leadership comes to the White House. They sit down to sort of map out, are there places we can work together on an agenda? And that's where the famous line comes out from him saying, I won, elections have consequences. Basically, a big get lost to the House Republicans. I don't plan to do anything that you're going to like because I won. And so he started that from day one, but now wants to, at the end of his presidency, to preserve his legacy, say, I would have done so much more, but, it's all the Republicans' fault for being partisan.
All right, he had like a laundry list of things that he did. I'm going to play some audio that I took a clip from somebody who did highlights of the State of the Union address, because I can barely stand to watch or listen to Mr. Obama. It's his fault that I can't. But I grabbed a couple of these, and I didn't listen to the speech, and I'm glad I didn't. But here's one of them.
If you doubt America's commitment or mine to see that justice is done, just ask Osama bin Laden.
All right, so
that's killer.
Yeah, he's still kicking the football or punting or doing something, or I don't know what he's doing.
I remember that great. It was swords. They had a sword battle, right?
He's got a bunch of these. He talks about defending Muslims from insults. He talks about how strong the U.S. economy is. He talks about the need to get out of money in politics. I'm awestruck at just what a ridiculous waste of time that whole State of the Union speech was.
And that the Club for Growth doesn't deal too much. We don't get into the foreign policy, but if you that initial comment there about Osama bin Laden. So, I mean, I'm inclined to give the military most of the credit there, but okay, so he was president at the time, and if it was Republican commander-in-chief, I'd probably applaud the action, so I'll give some benefit of the doubt. But what didn't come up is a lot of the problems that we're seeing are what's happened from Syria, and what about that red line, that firm line that he had laid down that was going to be the point that, we'd stand up and stop. And now you look at where we are, and we have a mess, and part of it's just this weak, fickle kind of, people look at America as no longer standing behind its word, and we didn't hear anything about that. Of course, that was that Tuesday night as well, when we didn't hear anything about the Marines that had been, or the Navy sailors, I should say, who had been taken by the Iranians at the time. That was ignored. So he, cherry picks, of course, just a handful of things. And like you said at the beginning, maybe this is just endemic of what's happened to the State of the Union. It's become more of a political speech of accomplishments than a real look at where the State of the Union's at.
What we can let's draw some economic red lines, since that's really more in the wheelhouse.
Reagan had red lines, and some Libyan jets turned into Libyan submarines, I believe. Remember the line of death?
Yeah, he did. So I don't know that there's anything of value in the State of the Union speech as far as economics goes, but is there anything we can learn from it? And that aside, where do we need to go? What does the next president need to do?
Yeah, quickly to look back, he made some comment, to the effect that, you're talking myth if you don't believe this economy is in recovery. If you continue to talk about it being weak and not growing, then, you're just making stuff up. And I'm roughly paraphrasing, but that's pretty close to what he said. And clearly there's been a lack throughout this presidency of being in touch with the working class and seeing where they are and how jobs are doing and what it's like being under the regulatory effect of this government. And people still, we're still seeing consumer spending still struggling, even though things are supposed to be so good. People are holding back because they don't trust this economy, because if anything, this president has just enhanced instability at every level and left people wondering what's ahead. And that goes to what the latter part of your question was, that to have a new president come in and be very clear about stopping the regulatory nonsense out of D.C., starting to take, if there is a need for regulation, analyzing its impact on the economy and being careful about any kind of implementation if it's going to have any effect on the economy, lowering tax rates, corporate tax rate, individual tax rates, showing that there's a serious, stable approach to the economy from the government's point of view, would go miles in helping small businessmen and women begin to make decisions to trust that it's going to finally recover after these years of this dragging sort of, 2% I think we saw last quarter in growth.
Sure. So the Club for Growth does a lot of work in research on candidates, whether it be congressional candidates, where if one is a member, one gets emails saying, such and such a congressional race coming up, chance to support a conservative, or Senate races, where you're pretty much in agreement with the Senate Conservative Fund on a lot of candidates. And then, of course, there's every 4 years there's your Presidential White Paper series, which these days has its own website. So I'm going to give that a plug, presidentialwhitepapers.com, and it's a project of the Club for Growth. And Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe who in your mind is the most pro-growth presidential candidate?
Appreciate that. Yeah, Presidential White Papers, we started back in 2008 with that presidential cycle, and now so this is our third time around of really just trying to give people an honest assessment of where these candidates have been, if they've voted or been governors and signed into law legislation, or have been private citizens and have written and spoken about tax reform, trade, entitlement reform, government spending, tort reform. Those are some of the issues. And essentially a lot of it is just a highly footnoted record of those votes, those statements, to let people begin to draw their own conclusions of where the candidates stand on these issues. And so the Club for Growth members really were big fans of Senator Cruz before he was elected, and the club's PAC endorsed him, and as well Senator Rubio and Senator Paul, believing that on economic issues and understanding that people will differ once you move off taxes, entitlements, and those sorts of things on Rubio, Paul, and Cruz. People have different views on some of the other issues. But on those that I've listed, that those guys would walk the talk, and the PAC endorsed them and was instrumental in helping them get elected. And this time around, as we did our white papers and looked at the push against Obamacare by Senator Cruz, looked at the fight for tax reform by Senator Rubio, the budgets put forth by Senator Paul, and we've said in these white papers, these guys are the real deal. Now, obviously, Rand Paul hasn't caught on by any stretch in the polls, and so we would continue to point back to Cruz and Rubio and say, these guys are, when it comes to those sort of pocketbook issues and getting the government smaller, more limited government on these issues, those guys seem to be the real deal.
Yeah, we have other differences with some of them, notably the expansive military view of Rubio, for example, or his immigration views. But you're right, his economic activity in terms of taxes and growth has been phenomenal. Paul likewise, and Cruz, as you say, outstanding. I noticed your comments on a couple of the other candidates. I'd been tracking, for example, Dr. Ben Carson since quite early last year and attending his events. And I would occasionally be surprised at the somewhat woolly nature of his responses, or the tendency to go off on a tangent while thinking on his feet. And so to read in your white paper the phrase "all over the map," I think pretty much sums up what I experienced in person. And it's a shame, because he's a really, really fine man, but he's not a policy wonk by any means.
You said it. I mean, that's you read his story and you listen to him on just straight from the heart kind of comments, and you're right. He's a guy that is certainly inspirational on a lot of levels. But I mean, you pointed out the problem that as we look back at his books, which it's one thing. You should, by the time you're on a presidential campaign trail, you should have those answers generally nailed down. But when you write a book, you've got even more time to sit and be very careful about how you put forth things, or you make a speech at the National Press Club. And that's some of our stuff was drawn from that. And even there, it's just this sense of, I don't want to say it's uncertainty, but it's inconsistency on views, where he desperately wants to be a free market, strong capitalist kind of guy, and yet gets to health care and wants to, would ideally put health insurers, private health insurers, out of business, or at least regulate the kind of profits they can make, and what share of their profits would go back into a, kind of another kind of health care for, the greater, for people who have disastrous kind of occurrences, to set up a program for that. And just, there's these instances that come up in some of his writing and remarks that show that he does have, and he's said, a rather liberal background, and some of that still bleeds into some of these points of view where he allows for a bigger role for government than a lot of conservatives, a lot of libertarians would be comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm actually of the opinion that the fine doctor was hyped beyond his abilities by somebody who's profiting from this hype and from the money making that's easy to do from the people that are happy to support him. And I think now it's finally got to the point where that support is turned down, but along the way a very large number of dollars have come across the transom. And I suspect there's a cui bono question in there somewhere. I wish him a very fine retirement.
I have a friend.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just furthering the same conversation. There was an article in National Review this morning, or maybe Breitbart, suggesting that the establishment is starting to kind of cozy up a little bit to Trump. And by establishment, they're saying the crony capitalist establishment. They're cozying up to Trump because they see that he might be someone they could work with because of his business background. He might keep the gravy train rolling a little bit.
Yeah.
But they are most afraid of Cruz because Cruz is going to just kick rear end and take no prisoner.
Yeah, as I said earlier, he's going to burn down the entire rat-filled, plague-infested warehouse in D.C. And that's a Richard Viguerie piece from the Conservative HQ.
What's our strategy around that issue in terms of letting people know that, or helping to advance that, the idea that Cruz is going to be the biggest fighter for limited government?
We're doing everything we can. The 603 Alliance, who held our caucus, which Cruz won handily because, frankly, he put in the most effort. Again, is doing what it can to assist the Cruz campaign. It's interesting, with this late in the game, and there are 2 or 3 campaigns that haven't run any ads. That would include Trump himself, Cruz. I don't think Fiorina's put any big money into ads yet either. I think you're going to see from all 3 of those.
Well, the Club for Growth ads, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, in Iowa had a big impact, right, on the Trump campaign? Do I have that right?
Oh yeah, the Club for Growth ads are very impactful. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, we did $1 million in Iowa. We did it over a 3-week period, so it really saturated. And if people recall, it was our ads ran into early October, and it was during the last part of those ads, and then the next coming weeks that Trump actually declined in the polls. It was Carson who was, as you were saying before, was heavily promoted and moved up. But until very recently, Trump has been in second place in the polls, and so we believed at that point that just telling people the truth about the views that he's held throughout the years, which when you talk about all over the map, I mean, he's been the king of that in terms of high taxes, still government paying for health care, and just the bailouts, trade issues, and an eminent domain, which I know was big in New Hampshire, the power transmission line issue. We just felt like if people saw that, it would at least cause them to pause and say, is this guy really a conservative? Maybe he's not. Maybe I like him for other reasons. Maybe I just like his strengths. But at least on conservative fiscal issues, know the record. I think when you talk now, when you look at this latest, I saw that piece in the Washington Post, when you look at the establishment, I guess here's the analysis I would give. This is the same group of folks, the Mitch McConnell crowd, who vehemently fought Ted Cruz and sought to undermine Ted Cruz when I would argue he came to Washington with an agenda that he campaigned on and fought for what he was elected to do in fighting against Obamacare and the spending. And this establishment side, the Mitch McConnell crowd, was more prone to line up with Barack Obama and walk into last year's budget debate by saying back in September that, well, we're taking a shutdown or any thought of that. That's not a negotiating tool. Basically, we're going to cave on this and led us to $1 trillion omnibus. So I'm hesitant. I can see the establishment doing this. If they're looking and saying, Trump's the guy we can probably make better deals with, Cruz is only going to upset the establishment down here, I can see where that mentality begins to move in. They'll line up with whoever it takes.
Yeah, I've seen this in 2 or 3 places, Doug. The intimation that the Washington establishment, after being, first of all, wanting to do everything they could to drag down Trump, and then kind of resigning themselves to the fact that they couldn't drag down Trump, and finally they're thinking this is the guy they can do a deal with and at least keep the gravy train alive. Whereas as Cruz, they're afraid of for the phrase I uttered earlier. It's fascinating, actually. So, last quick thought: you've been rather critical of Carly Fiorina too. Her campaign speeches, especially this last year, kind of imply that she gets it, that she understands the problem with cronyism. But you researched her further back and were somewhat critical.
We were, and again, and some of this, and people will say the same thing in terms of Trump. I mean, people do evolve, they do change in their thinking, and sometimes for very good reasons, and certainly Carly may well have. I think the biggest thing we pointed out is Prop 13 in California was one of the greatest accomplishments in finally protecting taxpayers on spikes in property taxes. And there was a measure to undermine that, and she was on the wrong side of that issue. She, on her argument being that the schools need more money, education needs more money, and so therefore the protections of Prop 13 can go away, was troubling to us, and it was just something we pointed out particularly. And sometimes, when she campaigned as a senator, she didn't really go back against that either. Some of these times when candidates evolve, what you love to see is at least a sense of rejection of what was a wrong position in the past, or an acknowledgement that it was wrong.
All right, we're against a hard break.
Clearly been there.
We're against a hard break. Yep. Just quick contact information, and then we'll let you go.
Yep, love for people to check us out on clubforgrowth.org, and they can see all about us there, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.
All righty, bye-bye. Okay, thank you so much. Everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We have I'm going to turn those off so you can put your headsets down if that is your desire. A few more seconds. Check us out next week. We'll be on the air all week. And not you, Mike, because your headphones onto mine. All right, we'll see you. Bye.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the fair use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Is the show really over?
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is GrokTALK.